So our family is connected in a couple of ways to Old Salem. Two of our descendant families were founding families of Old Salem, the Schmidts and the Loshingers. And many of them are buried here in the cemetery, and up even until recently, our history connects to the cemetery. Our father is buried here. In addition to that, I, my sister, and my brother all had our wedding ceremonies here. So it's really been intricately involved in many aspects of our life throughout our lives.
Our ancestors had a farm that was adjacent to this church, and that farm was operated by my family up until the 1970s, when it was sold to the developer that developed the apartment buildings that are adjacent to the church right now. And that proximity to the church and having our family history within a very tight geography is really special to me, in addition to the fact that the lake that the church sits on was actually named after our ancestors.
For me, I definitely remember coming to the Founders Day service, to the Epiphany service. I think the Epiphany services were probably the most memorable because they take place at sunset and they're just so beautiful and in some ways sort of surreal. They make you feel like you're kind of reaching back through time to connect with your own history and kind of history itself. So the events have always held a special place in my heart, and I think in the hearts of our family.
Right. Especially because of our proximity to the church when we were growing up, my dad would bring us here when we were really young because he would be caretaking the church. And it was easy for him to just hop over here because he was so close. And getting dragged along was really fun because we'd get a chance to be in the church at the time that nobody else was. So we could look at things longer and really just get a sense of the space, in addition to forming some memories with my dad. But as the now second generation of caretakers of the church, being on the board of trustees, I know my dad would have loved that.
I think we might have actually driven over here on a riding lawnmower.
Yes.
Just from our house to come over and help mow in some of the summers. And I have distinct memories of riding on my dad's lap to come over here. One of my most special memories is also one of my sadder memories, which was burying my dad here after he passed away. Of course, it was in some ways a really just one of the most horrible times, but on the other hand, it was definitely comforting to put him here, to know that he would be here where he had wanted to be buried and amongst the family that meant the most to him, that he was closest to, who had passed before him. So that was kind of a bittersweet memory, but also one that I find very special. And then of course too, my wedding day, that was very special, very hectic. So I actually don't have a ton of memories of it because it was kind of hectic. And then another one is both of my sons had a shared baptism ceremony here that really in some ways I enjoyed more than my wedding just because it was less stressful. And it was so special to have my sons baptized in this space and just see that that legacy was being carried on to the next generation.
Right, piggybacking on that, one of my most special memories at this church was Krista's son's baptism. And for a specific reason, at that baptism, my son and I had the opportunity to offer the special music for the service that was done. And I played the mandolin, he played the maracas, and we sang a Grateful Dead song called Ripple. And it was, I remember really distinctly at the time that that was happening, thinking about how it was the perfect combination of the old and the new. And I loved the idea that a building like this could be reborn for a ceremony of that kind, for the many generations of our family but then also we brought a little Grateful Dead into the mix. So I just thought that was really fun.
It worked.
And
really
it was a great day.
So I first got involved in the board of trustees by coming to one of the services. I believe it was a Founders Day service one year. After having been living out of state for several years, and I was able to have a chance to talk with Jill, who had been the longtime president of the board of trustees. And she kind of recruited me to come onto the board. She was always looking out, especially for potential younger members, just to help kind of carry us into the future. And I was grateful for the opportunity. I was excited to help. By then, my dad had passed, so it did feel like there was a special kind of extra connection, knowing that my dad would have really appreciated me being on the board. So I was able to do that for a couple of years. At which point our longtime treasurer, who was Bart, retired from that position, and we needed a treasurer. And it just so happened that my sister works in finance and insurance and is just very literate in that world. And she immediately occurred to me as someone who would be a really great fit for that role. So from an actual meeting, like when a trustee meeting was happening, I called Maggie on speakerphone with Jill standing nearby and said, "Hi, you're on the board now." That's how I'm remembering it.
No, I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get the phone call and got tag teamed to say yes. There was really no other answer at that point. So on the trustee board I was, but we joke a little bit about it, but it's rewarding work. And it's worthwhile to caretake such a beautiful space, a place that means a lot to our ancestors and to my mom and other relatives of ours. And so it's rewarding and worthwhile. So I'm glad I got involved. I think that everybody on the board feels like it's our duty, privilege, but also desire to make sure that the building is standing for future generations. And so that's a given. More so than that, though, I'd really love to see the building embraced widely by the community and have the community where the building stands feel like it belongs to them. And that kind of community involvement and support is what is going to be required as a bedrock to making sure that the church stands for longer than 10 to 15 years down the line.
Yeah, I agree. It does feel to me like the community overall, even those without any sort of personal connection to it, do feel a sense of ownership. It's very lovingly referred to as the Little White Church by pretty much everyone in Inver Grove, and maybe even kind of farther out than that in surrounding communities. And I think looking particularly longer term, finding a way to navigate not just the religious history of the building, but just sort of the historical significance as well. So one thing that we really want to do as we move into the future as a board is make sure that we're doing what we can to connect with the next generations of not only descendants of people who founded the church, but also just the generations to come of the community.
Well, and to that point, I think that the aim of our event that we have coming up on June 1st of this year is to do just that, is to make those community touch points, to have the event feel open and casual enough to have the next generation come in and see what some of the historical value of the church is, get an idea of what's here and why it's here. I think that that's going to be really a valuable day. And so, spread the word. The more the merrier on June 1st.
We look forward to seeing the whole community here.
We sure do.